Welcome to Launch Stories. We're all about connecting and educating Chilliwack entrepreneurs. Thank you. So Studio C at Cowork Chilliwack is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Stolo people. And thanks to our sponsors for helping with these monthly events, we've got the Chilliwack Economic Partners, the Chilliwack Innovation Network, and the Chilliwack Chamber of Commerce. Let's hear it for our sponsors. And thanks to our partners for organizing Launch Stories every month, Cowork Chilliwack, Currency Marketing, and Zinum Ventures. Thank you. And I've pulled my son out of retirement. He's helping with AV today. If we can say thanks to Aidan. You can see him on this screen right here. There he is. He's pushing all the buttons and getting a refresher on it. So far, the fact that I saw him on that screen, I have immense confidence. I'm thrilled to introduce you to our guest this evening. He is the president and CEO of Emil Anderson Group. Please give a warm Launch Stories welcome to Rob Hasell. Come on out.
Hi.
Have a seat. I affectionately call it the hot seat.
The hot seat.
Thank you so much for agreeing to doing this. I think your story is a total inspiration, and we're going to dig into it.
All right.
So I typically ask folks to give me an elevator pitch of what their company does. This is a tough ask for you because there are 6 companies and 10 business lines. But if you were to meet somebody on a 2-story elevator ride, what would you tell them?
Well, 6 lines of business, 10 companies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, got that backwards. I would typically say we are a full suite construction company, and we do all kind of different lines of business. So road and bridge building, residential building, land development, commercial building, and kind of support services around that. So that's what I would say.
That's pretty succinct. Well done. Growing up, if you go way back, I know we're not going to spend a ton of time on this because you're a pretty shy guy and don't want to reveal too much, but where did you grow up?
Grew up in Hope, BC, just up the road. Yeah.
Wow. How did you end up there? The family was there?
Yeah, Emil Anderson Construction is we'll get into that later, but a 4th generation family company. And our headquarters was in Hope from 1942 to 2010, roughly. So,
got it.
3 generations kind of lived in Hope and grew up mostly because it was like the confluence of the gateway to the interior, let's call it. So tons of road building from Hope into the interior. That's kind of our roots. So grew up there, and lovely town. Mm-hmm. But I moved to Chilliwack here to build the Vetter interchange as a superintendent.
Got it.
In 2002, and here I am. Never left Chilliwack.
Well, let's go back to Hope for a second, because I understand that you spent most of your childhood hanging out at the golf course.
Yes. Yeah, I played lots of golf. Somebody in this room can attest to that because I beat him all the time.
Okay. I cornered Chris because I wanted to get a lowdown on, because you just sloughed it off. He said, I'm kind of a duffer these days and can't even make my way around the course, but apparently that's a total lie. So.
Well, it depends on
fair enough.
It depends on the day, to be honest with you.
So you weren't initially destined to the family business. You went to UFV, I understand, or probably UCFV at that point, or UCFV
at the time,
and you were involved in the Cascades Golf.
Yes.
This isn't you, but I imagine that would be a pretty good approximation.
That person is a lot younger than I am. I played 2 seasons with the Cascades golf team back in 1994, 1995. And then I moved on to the University of Alberta and got my degree in civil engineering after that. Had a great time.
Was golf just a sideline at UFV, or did you see this as potentially a career path?
No, it was a sideline. It was okay. I was a good golfer, but I wasn't a great golfer. Really
apparently there was a dusty old trophy that emerged recently that actually said MVP, and one of the names on it was Rob Hasell.
That's a true story. True story. That's a long, long time ago, though.
Fair enough. But you moved to the University of Alberta, and what did you study there?
Civil engineering. That's most of our it's not a requirement to be in our business, but all of us, the family members and many others, got civil engineering degrees, and because it's really helpful in our business. So
Got it.
I followed that pathway and went to University of Alberta, and
I didn't ask you, but do you have any siblings?
two older sisters.
Got it. Okay. And did they pursue it all, the family business, or?
No, they did not. They went a separate way, but
Got it.
But a few of us did in the family. So.
Fair enough. What did you learn in Alberta?
That I really liked BC. And I learned how to be a student, I would say. A good student, and I learned where all the watering holes were on the campus too. So
Did you do any business courses there as well? And
yeah, some business courses. It was civil engineering focused, but did some business, some law, that type of minors, right? Just to sharpen my business skills. So.
Okay, so I promise not to ask you a ton of personal questions. We're now done with that part. Take a deep breath and we'll move into the company.
Okay.
So history, you mentioned it a little bit, but your grandfather, great-grandfather, Emil Anderson, it's an E, right? Anyway, Emil Anderson, he founded the company in 1938, and he was drawn to BC to pursue a contract, essentially, or get into construction?
Yeah, from Fort William, Ontario, which is Thunder Bay today. Came out this way to actually build a piece of the Alaska Highway, which was for the U.S. government during the war, so 1938. And then ended up in Hope to build the western half of the Hope-Princeton Highway, and that started in 1942. So then the headquarters ended up staying in Hope, like I said before, until 2010. But that was the impetus to come to BC, and never left.
And that was the core, which that piece of it is now Emil Anderson Construction. But you worked initially for the maintenance group, and you were the general manager for 7 years, from around 2008 to 2015. What's involved in the maintenance group?
I did work for the construction group from 2000 to 2008. Then I moved over into the maintenance group when somebody else brought it up in the green room when Fred Feisman, who's a longtime Chilliwack guy, great human being, retired. So he decided he was going to retire. So I came to Chilliwack and took over from Fred and worked in the highway maintenance until maybe 2014, somewhere in there. What's involved in the highway maintenance? Well, so it's the big part of the contract is snow removal, de-icing. That's the main component, but there's all kinds of summertime activities as well. As you can see, there's pothole patching on the highways and things like that, mowing and grading roads and dust control and curbing and all sorts of different things like that. And also event management, as we'll probably talk about later. Anytime there's a big landslide, we're right at the epicenter of that. Trying to recover roads and things like that.
And so you touched on it, but you are a 4-generation company, starting with your great-grandfather, and then Carl, I understand, would be his son.
That's correct.
And then he took over the company after Emil passed away. And then I get fuzzy on the names from here, but so I'm assuming Carl, did he have a couple daughters, and that's where the Jacobs and Hazel came from?
No. So Emil Anderson had really had 3 kids, but one died. So he had 2 surviving children. One was Carl Anderson, and Carl had a sister named Rita Anderson, and she married a fella named Bob Hasell. So her name changed to Hazel, and she had a son, and that was Bob Hasell II here.
Okay.
And then
I wasn't even close.
No, you weren't really, but that's okay. I'll keep you on your toes. So also then she had a daughter, Mary Lou Hasell, who married an engineer named Gil Jacobs. So the Anderson family broke into two different surnames at that point. So, and Carl Anderson actually had 4 daughters, and none of them came into the business. So it really ended up, the next generation was Gil and Bob Hasell.
And so Mike would be an older cousin?
Yeah, so Mike is Gil, Mary Lou's son, and I'm, of course, Bob's son, pretty obviously.
Obviously, yes.
Yeah.
That's a long stretch of a family-owned and operated business that grew to massive scale. I'm super interested in like from 2017 present, but how old were you when you took over the helm of president and CEO?
2017. So that was the time, but I really...
Right. But how old were you at that point?
Oh, sorry. How old was I?
Yeah.
I thought you asked what year I took it over. So that was an easy answer.
Yes. Yes.
How old was I? Oh, that's a good question. I would have been 45 at that time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm having trouble doing math right now.
It's all good. It's all
Put
good.
me on the spot there.
But that's pretty young.
45. Yeah. Yeah.
And to be thrust into that, did you then go to the library and take out a management book? Like, how were you prepared to take over the helm of this company?
Well, that's a good question. Have you ever had imposter syndrome?
I think everybody in the room has had it multiple times.
Certainly, I was a little bit thrown into the pan, but had a great network of people around me. Somebody was talking about Chad Northcott, and Fred Feisman was the other one I mentioned earlier. Good mentors, and we had a really good team. So there was all kinds of people to help and to guide you along. And then, within a year or two, you get your feet under you and you feel, hey, listen, I can do this. I think I know where the direction is. And if you have a good support system around you and good people, I mean, that's what helps move the needle, right? And so really just trusted myself and listened to the people around me.
And you have an amazing network of websites that I spent a lot of time on, and one of them, the main group one, has a history, but it really seems to have ramped up under Mike and then yourself on the acquisitions and the growth of the company, and it's really staggering. And so today, it is 10 companies in 6 lines of business. You've modernized some of the logos, but I see that the Emil Anderson is still sporting the 1950s retro, we saw that, all of us, going up and down the highways, I assume, on the yellow trucks and stuff. Is that sacred ground? Is that never to be touched?
I think so. I mean, there's some differing opinions, but...
Let me guess, an engineer designed that?
Yes. Yeah, you got that right. Gil Jacobs, he drew the logo in, I think, 1964 is somewhere in there with a ruler and a pencil and colored it in with a red marker. But it became certainly...
It's iconic. It's very
iconic
I'm not dissing it. I think it's really interesting.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
And I mean, we all know that, and but it's recognizable. Everybody in the industry knows it, and so I think would be a mistake to take away that tradition, and we want to keep it. Although we've rebranded some of the other companies, but that one's got staying power. So.
Well, we're going to dig into each of these to learn more about them, but I want to first go with a couple questions. I know that your head office is in Kelowna as well as Chilliwack. Is Kelowna the main headquarters? Yeah,
Kelowna's our headquarters moved from Hope to Kelowna in 2009 or 2010. So that's the overall Emil Anderson Group headquarters. But in Chilliwack here, we have a regional office, but also the headquarters for Emil Anderson Maintenance. So we have probably a third of our people in the Fraser Valley now, with some of the lines of business, and maybe 2/3 are in the Okanagan Valley.
How do you split your time?
I'm mostly here. Teams has been really great because it saves me a lot of driving. But I probably do a quarter of my time in the Kelowna area, and then a fair bit of my time is actually driving to jobs, and we work province-wide. So I'll get out there on the ground and see people, and so that takes a fair bit of my time too.
Today, how many employees, full-time equivalents, essentially?
I'd say it depends. Like it goes up and down a fair bit with our work volume, but somewhere in between 600 and 750, somewhere in there.
Wow, that's a lot of people. That's
Yes,
a
it is.
huge payroll. I can't even do that math, and we don't need to go into that. But you're a chill guy from the outside, but your legs aren't even twitching for this interview, and most people are like this. I would assume that, given like the stakes and the size and the scale, that it has to be stressful at some level. Like,
Yeah, definitely. It provides its share of stress.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I mentioned it earlier. I think when you really have people you trust and you have a really good team and they're committed, it makes it easy because people are out there pulling the rope, and you really you rely on them, and when they come through over and over and over again, it's pretty easy to say, okay, they got this, right? And so you can let your guard down a bit.
yeah, and I was looking, and you've got a strong leadership team, obviously, and these 10 folks are, I would imagine, your direct reports, or at least your collaborators. And then you're not doing 700 and some performance reviews at the end of the year, right? It's a structure.
I have 3 direct reports, really, and this guy in the middle, Brian Atwell, our chief operating officer, has way more than that. So he does a lot of the heavy lifting. Great team. Yeah, they work well together. We got a cohesive group. They collaborate. It's a pleasure to work with them every day. So and I'd put them up against anybody. We got a great executive group.
And given that you're a privately held company, there isn't an overall board, is there? Like an overseeing board, or is it more just the management team and you're self-governing essentially?
Yeah, so we're a private company. So we have a board made up of a few of these people, and then recently we changed our structure and we became an employee-owned company.
Oh, okay.
Which is a long transition. It's going to take many years, but we think it's a great succession plan at the end of the day, and we'll really create a lot of leverage in our company to have owners walking around in the hallways, like in broad-based ownership in the staff group. So we've got a board that has some employee members on it as well.
I know there's different legal structures to put that under, and B Corp is something that we talked about. Heidi and I, when I interviewed her, is there a particular corporate structure that allows for that employee ownership, or how have you done that? I know you're not a lawyer and you're getting help with that, but broad strokes, how does that work?
So it's an employee ownership model. So we have a company called Emil Anderson Group.
Okay.
And it's a shareholder of Emil Anderson Group, which is and Emil Anderson Group owns all the other companies.
Got it.
And so people can buy shares in Shareco once a year. Employees can, if they so choose. They don't have to. It's not mandatory. And so they own shares in this company called Shareco, and then we have another company called Exchange Co. that just acts as a market maker entity that buys and sells shares from
That's cool.
various employees to other employees.
And that's fairly new, you mentioned.
Oh, yeah. 3 weeks.
Oh, 3 weeks. Yeah. Okay.
Very, very
As
new.
of 2025.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, just went live. Maybe a little longer than 3 weeks, but right at the end of 2024.
When we met earlier, you mentioned that one methodology had some impact on you. And when you first took over, you mentioned the EOS, so Entrepreneur Operating System, and they have a book, Traction, and it has a real following. I know that some other companies in Chilliwack, Wim Kirchhoff's a big proponent of that, and there's a couple folks from that company here today. And what drew you to this? Like, were you searching for just some management advice and like?
Yeah, I had a friend who a guy named Scott Butler actually lives in Kelowna, and I had lunch with him, and he told me they were using the system during lunch, so he gave me the link, and I listened to it's on Audible. I listened to it on the way from Kelowna to Chilliwack, and by the time we passed Merritt, I was like, we're going to implement this system in our company for sure. And the big reason, or the catalyst in my mind, was we had these 6 lines of business, and they were all operating independently, and like kind of like silos. They all had their own operating systems. They all had their own accounting, and we were kind of bringing them together. And I really wanted a way to get them all speaking the same language, and having the exact same system, and then creating a shared services, which is the Emil Anderson Group above. And this system actually just hit on all those notes. And there's a lot of business books out there, and you read them, and they have a lot of really valid points. But this book, or this system, actually brings it all together into an operating system that works. And so I was convinced by the time we got there. Of course, some of our staff rolled their eyes when I told them the next day.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the change management side of it, and
yeah, but our group, it took about 2 years to implement. Our group embraced it like really well, and it does create traction. The word is traction in your business,
right?
And it's really quite valid. So,
and from your understanding, is it for a certain size of business, or does it apply to all sorts?
Yeah, you can apply it to any size of business. I think it really easy to implement in something like a law firm or a manufacturing business, or in between 15 and 100 employees. A little more difficult across 6 lines of business, but nonetheless, we dug in and did it, and it's been a game changer for us. Really has helped to propel our growth for sure, right? And people are a big part of that too, but it's really helped us, set a vision and then follow that. And it's been a game changer for sure.
So you'd highly recommend it, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah, I would absolutely recommend people consider it. And if it's good for them, then implement it. But and I don't get any money from Traction for a kickback at all. It's just it's been a really valuable tool for us in our business.
And is it primarily a book? Do they have a software system, or is it just basically a methodology? It looks like there's a number of different things. And is it expensive?
No, it's not expensive at all. You can have them implement it for you, and that costs some money, or you can implement it yourself, and that's what we did. So not expensive at all. There's a series of books. This is the main one. There's another book called Rocket Fuel, and another one, abbreviated version called What is EOS?
Got it.
And they have a website. You can go on the website and read all about it, and they have tools there for free that you can implement. It was quite simple.
Well, commercial over. Let's dig into the actual 6 lines of business now.
All right.
We're going to start with Emil Anderson Construction, and this is the bread and butter. From what I understand, it's the largest percentage of your business and continues to be. And so it's stuff like this. It's huge undertaking construction. Talk to us about that line of business and what you do.
This is the first business, right? It was the founding business, and it was the only business until we diversified, and we'll get into that as we go in the 1980s. But road and bridge construction, some dams, stuff like that, industrial construction, but mostly road and bridge. Ministry of Transportation's been our main client. The BC Ministry of Transportation been our main client for all these years. This is the Kicking Horse Canyon Phase 4, which we just completed in a joint venture with Acon. If anybody's driven to Calgary and gone through Golden recently, this is you would be driving on that bridge now. It's completed, but if you went by during construction, it was something to see. Pretty. Yeah, we went a couple summers ago, and it was definitely a mass construction zone. Like, holy cow. Yeah, and really, incredibly risky project, but went really well, to be honest with you. It was a great success, and we're really proud of that project, that's for sure. And you're working all over the province? Is it primarily in one area or another, or? No, so we bid on construction projects. So wherever the bids come out, we're gonna look at them, and when it fits us, we submit a bid, and we're so anywhere really in the province. So we've worked in Alberta, we've worked in Washington State as well, but we we know this system here, and we primarily stick to British Columbia.
Next one is the properties. And I thought this was such a good example of not just your property side of things. That's obviously the building that you built there, but there's the bridge work. You also did the road work, and this is really an encapsulation of what you do in many ways, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good example. Somebody called it Emil Anderson World one day when I was there, because we got the contract with the city of Chilliwack to build the bridge there, and it was a design build, so we designed that and built it, and I'm particularly proud of it because I see it all the time. But it's a nice piece of art for the city too. So we got that project, and during the construction, there was this piece of land here, and we needed a laydown area for our construction, for formwork and all that all the construction materials and such. And so we ended up buying this property. And then after the project's all done, we're like, well, now what? No. And our properties division does just that. They develop land, for sale, neighborhoods for sale, and this has historically mostly been in the Okanagan, but we work in the Fraser Valley a fair bit now. Mm-hmm. So we develop neighborhoods, sell properties, but we also develop and build for ourselves as investments, right? And this is a good example of we own this building, we built it, and actually GEC, who we'll get into later, actually built the building. Emil Anderson Properties owns it and manages it, so manages the tenants, the leases, all that sort of thing. And
you really had just an amazing group of companies come in here, and it just seems to be really curated. Were there folks that were clamoring to get in that you picked one over another, and what does that look like?
Yeah, we had a fair bit of interest at the time. It was right before COVID happened, so fair bit of interest, and but we really wanted to have the right mix, because it's kind of a standalone piece of property. It's not on. It's a destination. People have to go there. They have to want to go there. So we had to have the right mix to draw people there, right? So we really wanted it to be an artisan type thing, and based around the river, and or hospitality that really is kind of like the brewery on the other end. You can sit and look at the river. We really wanted that to be a draw. Right? So rather than putting a dollar store or a Panago,
sure,
that doesn't fit, right? This had to be artisan and to draw people to the property.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine a dollar store. You touched on this because this was your baby for a while, but Emil Anderson Maintenance, you now have 3 districts essentially, and so you have the contract in the Fraser Valley, in the Robson area, and Skeena, which is in the Terrace area. What's a service area?
So the Ministry of Transportation divides the province up. There's 28 different areas in the province, some big, some small, some medium size, and we have 3 of those 28, and you're allowed to have up to 5 contracts. So we'll stick with 3. It's lots to manage. So service area like Emil Anderson and the Fraser Valley, we've been here since 1996, so quite a few years now. And it starts in Langley at 264th and goes past Hope, almost to Princeton, almost to on Highway 1, almost to Lytton, and just goes a little bit up to Coquihalla, which is great because that's a really tough piece of road. But we just go outside of Hope a little distance there. So.
Quick trivia question. What's the paint chip name of this?
Wheatland Yellow. It's mandatory that all the trucks have to be Wheatland Yellow and have a specific reflectivity and lighting package for it to be. We get audited every year on that by the Ministry of Transportation. So, yeah.
You have so many pieces of equipment. Like, how many do you think?
In total, about 1,600. About 700 or so is heavy equipment like loaders, excavators, graders, bulldozers. A lot of support equipment though as well, pickup trucks, but 1,600 units right now.
So 1,600 times an average of 125,000. That's a lot of capital.
Yeah.
And how long does a piece of equipment last? You're putting on huge.
Yeah, the big heavy equipment, we usually run them about 10,000 hours. So that's a full depreciation cycle. And some of the pickups, it depends on the usage. The highway trucks will run to 500,000 K usually, diesels. And but the ones that are on construction sites, they don't last nearly as long because they're just bouncing on dirt roads all the time. So it really depends. It's a lot of mechanics, though, I can tell you. It's a lot of mechanical repairs. It's a lot. It's a big fleet to manage. Yeah.
Where is your mechanic building? Is it in both Kelowna and Rosedale?
Yeah, Rosedale, Hope, Kelowna.
Okay.
And then every job, or like the Terrace area and Robson area as well, but every job we set up a mechanical operation at job, and we'll do a lot of the work right out on the ground with mechanics. Yeah.
And is there a particular flavor? Like if I'm the home guy, I've got DeWalt, I've got Makita, I've got Milwaukee. Like, is there a favorite brand of equipment?
Yeah, well, I would.
I'm just trying to relate to you, Rob.
But certainly, Caterpillar is a really, really high quality brand, and most of our equipment purchases recently are Cats. But John Deere, Komatsu, Hitachi, they all make really good equipment. When it comes to trucks, Western Stars are for commercial trucks and snowplows. Western Stars are the ones we most often buy.
Cool. Next up is Dilworth Homes. And so Dilworth is a mountain in Kelowna, I believe. Yeah. That's what it's named after. And so was this an acquisition, or did you start that company underneath Emil Anderson from the get-go?
So in the mid-80s, 1986, we ended up purchasing Dilworth Mountain. It was when the interest rates were incredibly high and land wasn't worth very much, and our Gil and Bob Hazel, the previous generation, decided they were going to buy Dilworth Mountain, which is right in the center of Kelowna, that started us into the land development business. And at the time, we were building roads and doing all the civil work with Emil Anderson Construction. I was like, well, we should be able to service lots and sell lots too. So that's how we got started in the land development business, and been there ever since, and still have land on Dilworth Mountain to this day that we haven't developed. And we have 5, 6 other developments in the Okanagan area. And then we have some developments in Chilliwack as well, not residential, purely residential in the Okanagan, but more commercial.
The contrast of that sentence in your low-key delivery of, we bought a mountain. Like, show of hands, how many out in the audience have bought a mountain? But that mountain is like, it's prime location. It's, if you're at Orchard Park, you're looking out and it's that hill right there. Yeah. And so imagine it's just giving you years and years and years of development. And
yeah, we've built about 2,600 lots and homes. Wow. On the mountain. We're the exclusive builder as well. We'll get into that, I guess, next. Yeah. Oh, that's Dilworth Homes right there.
That's Dilworth.
So we built all 2,600 homes on the mountain.
Wow.
And still have some left to go.
And so that rolled into the company. The next acquisition, or that wasn't an acquisition, you started that, but a absolute household name in Chilliwack is Jerry Ann's Construction. And so how did you and Jerry get together and acquire that company?
Well, I needed somebody to build my house, and Fred Feisman actually pointed me at Jerry Ann's and said, "Hey, you should ask Jerry to build your home." And so we worked out a deal, and he built my home, and that's back in 2008. We're up on Promontory. Then after that, he did some more work for us, and I was suitably impressed. I said, "Hey, it's really high quality building, right?" And then we got to talking, and Jerry was 60 at the time, and didn't have a succession plan. So we started discussing it, and it just kind of went from there. And we bought Jerry Ann's contracting 7 years ago now. So, and Jerry's still working to this day. Still. He's retired, but he just never leaves.
So he could change the locks
because he's a great help. It's been a fantastic relationship actually post acquisition.
And I can see both of you are very similar, both very active in the community, real pillars of the community, and I could see that that was a real smart exit for him as he was seeking retirement. But this is part of South Sumas, what's it called?
Legacy Pacific.
Legacy Pacific, thank you. But he also has built many of the fixture projects in town. This is Frankie's Grill, and does primarily commercial industrial, or is there a whole mix of residential as well?
No, don't do much residential.
Yeah.
Once
so
in a
you
while,
twisted his arm to build a house, really?
Yeah, once in a while they'll do a custom home or a renovation, but mostly it's commercial building. That's the main part of the business. This is Frankie's restaurant, of course, and just most recently we Jerry Ann's Contracting built the Chilliwack Community Services building downtown across from District 1881. Wilma's Transition House, the Chilliwack Search and Rescue building just completed recently. There's a few.
And you've got a big project just over here on Hawking.
Yeah, so that's an office called Benchmark Building, and GEC's building that. And there's some that's maybe 2 months away. We're gonna have people occupying, tenants in there. It's almost fully rented. There's one space left if anybody's looking for an office.
It's more than Cowork Chilliwack. so all my members out there, but it looks like an absolutely beautiful property. So well done.
We're really proud of that too. It's going to be a great enhancement to the community for sure.
All right. So I think we're now through 4 companies. Ballina Contracting, this was one of your most recent expansions, acquisitions, and this is a company that came from the Terrace area, right?
Yeah, if you go back to highway maintenance, we acquired EAM Skeena, which was a Terrace highway maintenance contract. And there was a small company there that we ended up acquiring as well called Danoon Contracting. And then we renamed it Ballina, which is, and then brought it down into the Fraser Valley. And we've started to do, small scale kind of construction projects things that EAC wouldn't bid on. So smaller periphery stuff, working with Emil Anderson Maintenance on things, but it's really ballooned into something pretty significant now. And I think they did about $40 million worth of revenue last year. So that's really, it's really going quite well.
And Ballina, what is the significance of that name?
Well, Ballina is a town my mother's from in Australia, right? And Danoon was a neighboring town in Australia, just coincidentally. It was about a half an hour drive away. So we said, well, let's name this company. Let's change the name to Ballina. And my mother happens to be in Ballina right now.
Wow.
And it's in northern New South Wales, just south of Brisbane.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then it looks like you also do some traffic management under that brand as well. And does that work on all of your group of companies' projects, or how does that work from traffic control?
Yeah, primarily in the Fraser Valley.
Got it.
A little bit in Terrace area as well, but they don't branch outside of the Fraser Valley. But they've got a fair bit going on. Probably 30 or so trucks and quite a few employees. So it's it's going well.
So I think that is actually the 6th one. We went through all of them. There will be a test after this to identify them all and link them and so forth.
I always forget 1 or 2 myself.
Speaking of your calm nerves and demeanor, we're on the SEPCO board together, and we were, if you go back 4 years, in November of 2021, one of those service districts you actually service for the province of British Columbia was absolutely devastated. And that fell on you and your company to fix it. It literally made the island of Chilliwack, and it stopped Trans-Canada transport of all goods and services. And so if we look back, like some of your stuff just fell apart. Like, not that you built and not some of the infrastructure in British Columbia fell apart. We'll just cut that. but literally, and so Take us into that situation. You're on the pulse of this. You're seeing this. When did it really start to worry you and your team?
That's a good question. It was a Sunday night when it started, the first atmospheric river, and we were on the phone to each other. I was actually with my son in Coquitlam in a swim meet. I was driving back through Abbotsford, and I was like, well, this isn't very good, right? I got home, we made our team had some phone calls, and we're like, hey, we're going to have landslides tonight, almost certainly. And then the next day, it kept going. And then the next day, and about day 3, we were like, we already had some pretty significant damage. And then this damage is on Coquitlam Highway. This really happened in that third wave. There's 4 bridges, but 9 sections of bridge
I just got a few different pictures here.
Right, and so at that point, in day 3, every highway was closed. So Highway 7, Highway 1 through Abbotsford. It was just starting to flood in Abbotsford at that time, but all the highways were closed at that time. Anyways, 7, 1, 9.
So do you get a call
5,
from the premier, Rob? Can you help us?
No, but 2 layers below that. So the ADM just literally phones and says, hey, what are you going to do? Right. And the reason they phone us is because we've, number one, we're the maintenance contractor in the area, and they have a mechanism through that for us to hire other people and to just go to work immediately. So there's no contract negotiations, anything. There's a mechanism in there. It's just triggered. And so we end up kind of in the epicenter of the battle, right? And the other part is nobody could get anywhere. Like, you couldn't get out of any community. You couldn't get out of Chilliwack any direction. So we had to come at it and, get on the phone and phone people in every community and get them kind of mobilized in every direction. It was really something.
And where was your command center? Was that in Kelowna, or was that in Chilliwack?
That was in Chilliwack, right? And we just create a war room in our boardroom in Chilliwack, and then just start planning with the information we knew. Mm-hmm. That's the other part. We didn't have any idea.
And how were you getting stuff? Was it helicopter or like?
Yeah, mostly. Yeah, we had a helicopter just on standby all the time for.
And then somebody, I imagine, has a spreadsheet going to try to at least track some of the stuff you're doing, or how did you manage that from just making sure that you were properly tracking and being compensated for at the end of the day? Yeah,
we set up a team, a team of administrators, and they just started tracking, right? And there's 5 or 6 of them, and then we had, at least a couple hundred people in our team, and hired kind of in EAC, Ballina, EAM, and then at least several, or at least say a dozen local contractors in the Chilliwack, Abbotsford, Hope area, just straight to work. And we had to keep track of all those hours, and it was a real beast. Yeah.
And so you got it operational a little over a month, literally, to at least from a transport, getting goods and services on that. Could you see, to me, it's insurmountable. How did you chunk that into a manageable project? Was it chaotic? Was it systematic? How did you get through that?
Oh, it was very chaotic. There's no question. But we really just said, hey, let's focus on 2 lanes so that we could get people and goods into the interior. And that was really the mandate from the province. So just get 2 lanes through so food can get into grocery stores in these other communities. So some of the highways, it took a few days to open. Highway 7 was a week and a half or so, and that was the quickest one. And that allowed at least to move from Chilliwack through to Mission, that type of thing.
If we go to something like this, what's the move to get it operational, joining this to this? Is it a temporary structure?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. So we just picked one of them, right? Pick this one here, and we got to demolish that span.
Okay.
There. And then we this is really a jump span, so we had to build a temporary span from here to here, and we got a company called Conforce to cast us a concrete span. We had to rebuild the abutments and the pier so it could sit on something on either side, and rebuilt that, and we did that 9 times up the Coquihalla, and that got 2 lanes open, or there's a series of mudslides as well, so we had to clear all those. We had to repave sections in the dead of winter, right? But we got it open in 31 days, 2 lanes, and of course they didn't let personal traffic go for quite a while after that. It was just commercial traffic for goods, but that was pretty incredible accomplishment, really, from our team and the neighboring team, which was Yellowhead Road and Bridge was on the Merritt end, and they had a similar situation going on there. So. And
where was all the material coming from? All of the rocks and fill and concrete and like.
Well, there's a quarry outside of Hope that we utilize, but we also took out the center of the highway. Like if you're ever driving through Hope and you're heading up the Coquihalla Highway, there used to be a big rock bluff in the middle of the highway, and we just we put drills up there, and we drilled and blast about 100,000 cubic meters of rock there, right in the center of the highway. Took it out and just used that to reinforce the rivers, to rebuild the embankments. That was mainly where it came from.
And I think everybody in the audience thanks you for it. It's really amazing. We just magically realized that the road is working again and we could go. And then you followed up. It was a little over a month later that you had it operational for all 4 lanes or portions of it, or at least the public transport.
Yeah, it was 2 lanes right away, and then we subsequently got 2 more lanes open after that. And then we actually then tendered and bid on the project to do all the permanent work, and we got that. And so we did that in a joint venture with Peter Kiewit, and rebuilt all the bridges, and they're now all completed and quite a bit higher, quite a bit longer spans, very robust bridges that won't be susceptible to the same weather event.
Wow. Let's dig into some corporate initiatives. And one of the things I should have talked about probably earlier, but your absolute company-wide commitment to safety is what really propels you, isn't it? Like it's just an absolute core of what you're doing.
Well, it's caring for people. So you do that well, that's number one, right? And we put a tremendous amount of energy in that because it's the most important thing, right? And from that, everything else comes. You do that really well, and people, focus on productivity and things like that, and that's great. But if you do that, if you do safety really well and make sure everybody's taken care of, you don't have incidents. You don't have delays with that, and the productivity kind of comes, and everything's kind of this like quality. All the processes align with the same quality process, so everybody just becomes accustomed to doing that well and doing everything else well. Mm-hmm. And it's just, it's a huge thing for us, and will always be, right? Because it's number one core value of our company.
I was scouring your LinkedIn page for the group, and this was just your management folks in a boardroom. And I believe this was all about safety, this meeting, or at least a portion of it.
Yeah, this particular portion, that's our director of safety up there on stage, Steve Howe's his name. This is our annual leadership summit that we have, and the first day is about safety. And just in keeping with our core values, right? And then we have leadership speakers and things like that. But it's about training our managers and networking and building team, and it's a great event we have every year.
Mm-hmm. If I apply for a job in one of the companies, is there a standardized intake and training piece that happens, or what does that look like?
Yeah, there never used to be, but there is now.
Asking for a friend.
Yeah. We would gladly accept your resume, Tim.
Okay.
We have a standardized kind of onboarding procedure that, again, goes through safety first. But all our policies, procedures, all that sort of thing, and is designed to help that new employee really get a foundation under them before they start, right? And we're always trying to improve that because it really is critical, right? Rather than just setting them out into the field and they're not properly set up for that. So we're continue to improve that as we go.
Do you find hiring to be a challenge? Many companies say that kids of today are just slackers, and are you finding the talent that you need to work in your company?
I'd like to say yes, but not really. We have problems finding people in the field level, the craft positions, because that's people don't want to do that as much and don't want to be on the road as much. But in our staff group, we have a really we don't have a hard time. I think we got a good network out there, and I think we really try hard to have a great culture, and kind of people out in the industry know that. So when there's a job opening, we can usually fill it. But it's important to us that we hire the right people too, right? The culture is like critically important to us, and the right fit is important for that person too, because if they don't fit, it's not gonna.
I would imagine you've got some employees that have been around, given the length of the company, that you're celebrating 30, 40 years, and also I imagine a lot of retirements and filling in. So. Yeah,
I handed out a 35-year service award this year. Actually, we have 4 people retiring this year, and between them, they have 147 years with our company. It's crazy.
Wow.
They all precede me by a fair bit, and so it's bad to see them go, but we're really happy for them that they're moving on and they're going to be able to retire, but a lot of years of service walking out the door. So we're going to have to, yeah.
So you're doing the math. The company's 83 years old. Do you have a goal? I'm going to hit 90 at the leader of this. I'm going to go for 100. The 100-year mark, or have you thought about what is there a succession after you when a chosen child is held up like Mufasa in The Lion King?
We're 86 years.
86,
so 1938. So 86 years this year. Want to make it to 90 and then 100 and then 120. Really, for us, I'm
talking about you personally.
Yeah,
me leading personally. The company, thinking, okay, 120, yeah.
Well, I told my wife I'm never going to retire, and she rolled her eyes right away, right? So, but it's probably true. I'm probably going to stay connected in some fashion, work way less, but stay connected in some fashion. But I have a daughter and son, and who knows, they're still teenagers. And my cousin Mike has a son who's might come into the company. We'll see. But the employee ownership model we just implemented, the whole idea is that if there isn't a family tradition succession, that the company will be in good hands with people who know the business, and it'll go on for generations to come. It's really the infinite game we're trying to play with, and just keep the legacy going.
And you haven't had to seek outside investment. Essentially, you've been able to keep it all. Has a big company ever come and said, we're interested in, and you've just said out the door? Or
Yep, that's happened a few times, yeah. There's been interest. We've never had outside investment in the company. So it's been privately held the whole time, 100% privately owned by family members up until this time. So now it's family and employees, and we like it that way. Getting private equity is a good vessel for some people, but we like to have it in-house and have
if you don't need it,
don't need it, full control. It's good. We're limber. We can make decisions when we need to, and we like it that way. So we're going to try to keep it that way.
what role have you seen technology play over the years? Like, clearly things like surveying and mapping and so forth has been influenced by that, but what role has that had in your business?
Oh, well, in the construction business, the Emil Anderson construction business, it's in the last decade or so, it's machine control. So the guy running the bulldozer, really the bulldozer is now cutting to a model, a computer model, and it used to be the guy was controlling the blade, and that's not the case anymore. He's in there controlling the back and forth, and the bulldozer or the grader for that matter, and in some situations excavators or self-digging trenches and things like that. It's all that grade control. So as long as your model is 3D model is correct on a project, you can excavate it from down to grade, and it's all controlled by the machine. So that's a big thing because it really has taken away the human error, over digging, under digging, that sort of thing, and it's made it easier because skilled operators were really, really hard to come by, but it's a little easier now with grade control, so we can train people. Computers doing a lot of it. So there's that, and the survey equipment's really been a huge one, and recently it's electrification of our fleet. So we're trying to, as much as possible, fuel's our biggest expense,
right?
Biggest material expense in our company, and we're trying to cut that down and do the right thing for the environment and reduce emissions. So
is that practical these days? I guess more on the truck side as opposed to the big heavy equipment, right?
Yeah. So on the truck side, it's practical in urban centers.
Right.
As soon as you get out and you're on a highway in between Revelstoke and Golden, it's tough to have an electric vehicle, right? Otherwise, you're going to have a diesel generator there charging it up. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. But in the urban centers, it's quite practical and it's really taking off, I'd say. And there are some electric machines coming out now, but similar situation. Urban centers, you can charge them. It's practical, but it's got a long way to go for the remote sites and to be across the entire industry. Cool.
A big part of your involvement is having an impact in the communities you serve. Also, this is a big donation you gave to a school. And talk to me about the importance of giving back.
It's always been really a big part of our business. I think from the previous generations, we wanted to contribute to the communities because it's really important, right? It's not just about being in business and making money. It's about being part of the community and helping people that maybe need it. More than we do. So we have, and say in the last 5 years or so, we set up a employee-led community give back group, which we're really proud of. That and they at this employee-led group, they have 2-year terms, and then new people come in, but they really take in all the donation requests and the worthy causes and adjudicate those and the employee group decides rather than it being, the decisions made at the apex of the organization. And that's been really great for the employee group as well to feel connected to the communities and feel a part of that process. But we have a pretty substantial budget, and we always go over it every year. That's kind of how it goes. And
I go to things at the cultural center, and you're the biggest sponsor, it seems, other than the Hub Theater, but it's the whole program this year is brought to you by and just investing in the community. It's very visible and really appreciated.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. And we try really hard to. Some companies might just pick one charity and just hit that really hard, and that's great. We try to, never say no, and try to spread it out and try to help as many organizations that need it as we can. And we have the Community Give Back committee in the Fraser Valley and the Okanagan Valley, and one in Terrace and one in Robson as well. So our main 4 hubs, we center it around that. But we also have
And then you're also encouraging employees to get involved too, physically. It looks like this was.
Yeah. We do lots of this stuff. It's fun. It builds camaraderie with the group too. But we ran this tournament for quite a few years, and we're part of it as well. So.
Well, I think you're as humble about your business as you are about your golf game, and it's just truly unbelievable. Thank you for sharing your story, and let's hear it for Rob. I do have a microphone right there. I'm going to turn it over to the audience because you're going to have some better questions than I could come up with. And any takers? Colin's always good for a start. He gets us going.
Well, thanks so much for being here and sharing your story. Very inspirational, and what an amazing legacy for your family. As we look to the future of technology, he stopped short of the AI question. So as you're working on these bids, how much is AI helping you make those repeatable bid processes more repeatable?
We were just talking about that today in the boardroom, and we're trying very hard to not maybe be on the very front edge, but be right behind that. We have really good processes, and we're good at bidding. Like, we know how to do it. We've got good humans doing it, but obviously we need to get there because everybody else is going to be as well. So it's really, we're wading into the water, I would say, but we already have some processes automated with AI, but we got lots of people checking that to make sure, right? Because we're trust but verify right now, but it's going to be a huge part of the future, especially with estimating. And we've got a team of, we probably have 15 people in our company that estimate, and certainly it'll create efficiency in that group for sure.
All business owners are in the position today of, do you use it to save money or do you use it to increase capacity? If you're using it in your line of work to increase capacity, and so is everybody else, what gets done that wasn't getting done before?
Well, I'd like to say it's increasing capacity, but our capacity to do work is really governed by the workforce, the capable people we can put out on the road. It's not so much on how many jobs we can bid in a year. So we still selectively choose the jobs that we really want, and we bid those. So it is going to be an efficiency thing for us for sure, and really the humans that are out building the road and managing those projects, that's the critical kind of governing factor for our capacity.
Thank you.
If you get to the place where AI is doing all of the bridge engineering and stuff, please promise me you'll actually check the math.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every time I go over something like the Portman Bridge, I think of myself building an IKEA thing and then stripping a bolt or something, and it just freaks me out that I'm hoping that those things are built to a higher tolerance. So.
They are, yeah, definitely higher than IKEA.
Any other questions? We've got one in the back. Jeff Fortin.
You're not small business, but family business is a big part of the economy. And you always hear about the son with the silver spoon, and nobody respects the son because, he was just given everything. And just to literally dig up some dirt on you, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard stories about in your younger years, and I'm not sure it was under the direction of your father or not, but you were living up in a trailer in the mud and the rain and the wind and the cold, and the conditions weren't like the Hyatt. And can you just talk a little bit what it's like to be in a family business and combating that? Or like, I know that you have the respect of the community, but your staff, and what's that like?
Well, the first part of the question, I guess, is true story. Like, I came out of high school and I told my dad I didn't want to go to university. He said, I have a job for you, for sure then. And I went to a camp up north and was drilling a tunnel. And it was incredibly hard work, right? And I think that was the point. And I was in a crew cab driving to work with people who have done this their whole career, and I was just like, wow, okay. These guys work like this every day, incredibly hard, and there's so much honor in that. But it was such hard work. I went home after about a month and said, yeah, I'm ready to go to university now. Right? And the second part of it is, the critical component in our family business was you're going to learn from the bottom up. You're not going to, come in and go straight into a management position. You're going to go out on the road and you're going to build a bridge, or you're going to go into the land development business and you're going to learn how to do this in some capacity. You're going to be in a business or two and learn, and you're going to do your time so that if you get elevated into a position of management, that you know what it's about. What people go through, the challenges, you understand those things, and that was mandatory in our company, and it would be if my kids want to come into, they're gonna put their time in and learn the business and try to understand what people go through. I think that's critically important, if especially in a family business looking to transition into another generation. Does that answer your question, Jeff?
Yes. Thank you.
No, it's a great question. I had in the slide deck, I had an HBO succession slide, and because shows like that create this absolute and utter chaos and tension and backstabbing and so forth, and heighten that family business, right? But it seems like from the outside looking in, that the culture, safety, all of that, it's a primo place to work, and you've deserved to rise to the top. So great question. Any more questions?
Thank you, Rob. I knew some of the stories, but certainly not all of them. I'm just curious about your succession plan and the employee purchase deal. How do they finance that? Like there's there's some big numbers involved, and you're going to have a whole bunch of employees with a whole bunch of money to ultimately end up with the ownership.
Yeah. So what we set up, we have this purchase period every year, and we set a stock price based on a bricks and mortar valuation. Hey, this is what the business is worth per share, and then people can indicate how many shares they want to buy. It's up to them. But we set up a financing facility on the side that they can borrow from, and it's a really great deal, and the reason it's a good deal for the employees, it's leveraged against the shares again, so there's not much risk for the lender. So it's a really favorable deal to help them enter, right? And they can buy again next year if they so choose, but they pay the shares down over time. And some people have had money put away, and we gave people about 2 years notice that we were going to do this, so people prepared for it. And also there's year-end bonuses and things like that people committed to, and it's been really good. We had about around 100 people in year one commit and invest in our company, and it's exciting for them. It's exciting for us too, because it's big change. So.
And do you see it being a set percentage of the company that could be employee owned, or will that potentially grow? Or
yeah, so we've said that over time we're the target is to sell up to 40%. That's going to take quite a few years, but and then there's a whole point at that point whether our family, our next generation is involved or not. We may just stop it at that point and have 60% family owned and 40% employee. Mm-hmm. But if not, then we'll likely just carry on and just gradually sell the entire company to the employee group.
As long as they keep that logo.
That's right. That's conditional.
Any other questions? Well, hearing that, let's give Rob a final round of applause. You can corner them in the kitchen. I'm sure you've got other questions, and we're not kicking you out the door. There's more food and beverages out there. We do a couple other things on a regular basis. Creative Third Thursdays, coincidentally held on the third Thursday of every month. It's a similar talk show talking to creatives. Coming up, we're doing our 10th annual Pecha Kucha, and that is a very specific style of talk. It's 20 slides that advance every 20 seconds. So these talks are 6 minutes and 40 seconds. It's happening on February 20th. All proceeds go to the Chilliwack Community Film Fund to help foster filmmaking in the Fraser Valley, and especially with students. And then launch stories. If you like this one, we've got another one coming next month, working on the next guest. So with that, you're free to get up and mingle and corner Rob for some more hard-pressing questions, or at least just talk to him. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim.